When God pushes you to the limit, divine transformation is just 3 days away. In the sleepy rural village of Larkspur, where cobblestone streets wound through lush green meadows, God was about to shake things up. Sarah, a devoted mother and church volunteer, felt the weight of a world crashing down around her as her husband, Mark, was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Her heart, once brimming with faith, now ached with despair as prayers turned into whispers of doubt. The congregation that once embraced them felt distant, leaving her stranded in an ocean of loneliness. Even amid the community she loved. One fateful night, after hours of tear-filled supplication at her bedside, Sarah's spirit stirred. She felt an urgency, a divine prompting. It was as if the very heavens cracked open and whispered, "Fast for 3 days, and call upon St. Jude, the patron saint of hopeless causes." With trembling hands, Sarah clutched the bedside cross, her heart swelling with a flicker of hope. This was not merely a simple prayer. It was a battle cry against despair. As dawn broke, Sarah gathered courage and shared her revelation with the church community. "We must fast together for Mark," she declared, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. The reactions were mixed. Some scoffed, "Too simple," while others nodded, "Let us pray." But still, worry hung in the air, thicker than the fog settling over the village. In her chest, Sarah felt a rising tide of faith, a wave of divine potential that separated the faithful from the doubtful. On the second day, anxiety clawed at Sarah. Mark's condition worsened, each breath a desperate gasp. In desperation, she called for collective prayer at the old chapel. The walls, once filled with laughter and joy, now echoed with uncertainty. Yet, as her fellow parishioners gathered, a transformation began to stir. They prayed fervently, hands clasped, hearts uplifted. The sound of their voices weaving together hymns created an electric atmosphere, heavy with divine expectation and hope. But what would come? Together they waited, a silent tension rising, punctuated by the rhythm of desperate pleas for mercy. Then, just as the sun began to dip beneath the horizon, a shimmering light filled the chapel, bathing everyone in golden hues. An unexplainable warmth enveloped Sarah, igniting within her an awareness of God's presence. Whispers arose in the congregation, all mingling with hope. "Something is happening," they murmured. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. On the third day, there was an undeniable shift. As they prayed, the atmosphere in the chapel thickened with a palpable intensity. Sarah clutched the altar, surrendering every ounce of her worry to God. And just then, a miracle blossomed. The very air seemed to pulse with energy, hope cascading through the congregation. Faces turned upwards, awe-stricken, as a divine assurance washed over the room. The spirit of St. Jude felt very real, tangible, inspiring fervor and faith. As news of this inexplicable moment spread through Larkspur, villagers began flocking to the chapel. Families gathered, faith rekindled like flames in the night. But for Sarah, standing amid the murmurs and prayers, one question gnawed at her. Was this transformation a sign of hope for her beloved Mark, or merely the start of a deeper journey into faith and divine presence? As she gazed into the hopeful faces surrounding her, Sarah could sense the impending revelation growing ever closer. As the sun rose on the final day of fasting, a sense of weightlessness filled the air, and Sarah felt a newfound clarity. It was as if the very atmosphere had inhaled hope and exhaled despair. She looked around at her fellow parishioners, their faces illuminated not just by the light streaming through stained glass, but also from a fire ignited within their hearts. Today is not just a day of prayer. It is a day of surrender, she spoke, her voice piercing through the murmurs. Let us trust in the goodness that God has planned for us, for he sees our tears and hears our cries. With every word, Resonance pulsed through the room, a shared heartbeat of belief echoing against the wooden beams of the chapel. As they all knelt together, Sarah felt the collective weight of their supplications rise to the heavens. Each prayer was like a gentle breeze, whispering secrets, hopes, and fears. The chapel swelled with sacred energy. It wrapped around them like a warm embrace, nurturing the fragile buds of their faith. But uncertainty lingered at the edges. With her hands raised, Sarah closed her eyes tight, drawing inward to that sacred place where doubts fare poorly against unwavering hope. She gripped the cross hanging against her chest, imagining her love for Mark like a bright beacon lighting the path through darkness. Her heart thrummed in hope, but the question from before still hung in the air. Would this act of faith bear fruit? Then, like a sudden gust of wind, the chapel door burst open. In rushed Thomas, one of the villagers who had spent years in the throes of skepticism about faith. I felt something, he stammered, breathless and wide-eyed. I don't know what it is, but there's a presence. It's like a powerful wave. His words set a wave of silence crashing down over the congregation. Eyes darted to each other, glimmers of realization blooming amongst the prayers. What if this was not just a plea for Mark but a call to all of Larkspur to awaken? Let us pray for everyone, Sarah suggested, feeling emboldened. Not just for Mark, but for those who need hope, those who feel lost. God is moving in our midst. We cannot hold this blessing to ourselves. Her call ignited a surge of unity. The chapel erupted in prayers not just for healing, but for awakening and transformation. Let your glory be felt in every heart. They cried out, voices soaring into the atmosphere. In that moment, a hush descended as Sarah felt a divine presence enveloping her. It was tangible, pressing against her skin like warm sunlight. She shivered, not from fear, but from purity, a profound awareness that they were being woven into something divine. Suddenly, a stirring came from the back of the chapel, and with it, a rustle of movement. Sarah turned and saw Mark, the very man they had prayed for, standing unsteadily at the entrance, wide-eyed and seeming to glow with an unusual light. Mark! Sarah's heart leaped, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'm here. I feel different. I don't know how to explain it, he said, voice rich with surprise and care as he stepped towards the gathering. Sarah rushed to him, hope ablaze in her chest. But just as hands reached out in joy, a sudden stillness swept across the chapel. What did this mean for their journey from this moment on? Was Mark healed? Or was this the beginning of something far greater, a calling? As the congregation fell into spontaneous praise, the question loomed. What would unfold in the days to come as they embraced this unknown? The air in the chapel vibrated with an energy that felt electric, igniting the spirits of those gathered. A wave of emotion washed over Sarah as she cradled Mark's face in her hands, searching for the familiar warmth in his eyes. They shimmered with clarity, revealing a depth she had never witnessed before. What happened to you? She whispered, half in disbelief, half in awe. Mark took a moment to gather himself, glancing at the congregation that watched him expectantly. I don't know how to put it into words. It's as if all my doubts, all my fears, have melted away. I was lost, trapped in darkness, and now his voice trailed off, replaced by gratitude so profound it shone through every line on his face. A soft murmur rippled through the chapel, hearts recognizing the miracle unfolding before them. Thomas stood nearby, eyes wide, a renewed faith blossoming in his chest. He feels it, he whispered to himself, nodding as if awakening from a long sleep. Let us share this moment together, Sarah called, her voice rising, buoyed by newfound zeal. We have been praying for healing, yes, but this is something much more important. It's a renewal, a restoration. It's our call to rise. As she spoke, the congregation leaned in closer, each face reflecting a mosaic of curiosity and hope. They felt it too, the pulse of life returning, the light breaking through the shadows. Together, they began to clap in rhythm, an act of worship that rooted deep within them. In that second, Sarah couldn't help but imagine Larkspur transformed. A community not just surviving, but thriving, igniting a spark of faith that radiated further than they could ever imagine. She caught Mark's gaze, sensing he was pivotal in this divine plan. Were they merely witnesses, or were they chosen instruments to embark on a bold journey ahead? The question spun wildly in her mind. She trembled with the possibilities. What whispers of destiny awaited them outside these chapel walls? As if in reply, an echoing voice from the back of the chapel called out, "What's our next step? What do we do now?" The weight of that question hung palpably in the air, calling for action. "We must share our experiences," Sarah answered, suddenly grabbing hold of clarity. "Let us take this miracle out into the world. Let others know that darkness can turn into light, that healing is possible, that we serve a living God." Those words resonated deeply with the community. Joy erupted once again, filling the lofty space. With hands raised, they lifted their voices in song, a chorus of voices united and alive with possibility. But as the melody soared, a deep silence fell over the congregation once more. Mark stepped closer to the altar, a fire igniting behind his eyes. I think what I felt has brought me back for a purpose. We need to gather everyone. There are many more in need. We cannot keep this a secret." His voice echoed with urgency, igniting a passionate resolve in them all. But behind that excitement lingered a truth they couldn't ignore. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. It would be filled with questions, uncertainties, forces that might not appreciate the light they would try to share. With hearts racing, they began to formulate a plan, each suggestion adding threads to the tapestry of hope they were weaving. "What if we open the chapel to those who've lost their way?" suggested one member. "Or hold gatherings in the park every Sunday?" chimed another. As they spoke, Sarah discerned a shadow creeping through her thoughts. What if their efforts weren't enough? What if the darkness fought back harder than anticipated? She pushed the fear aside, grasping Mark's hand tighter. It was too late to turn back. The momentum was strong. That in the midst of that fervent energy, a sense of divine purpose cloaked them all. But deep down, they felt the days to come would demand even more faith than they'd already shown. "Whatever it takes, we will walk this path together," Sarah declared, knowing there was no turning back now. What awaited them in the face of such bold steps? Would they be met with open arms or heavy resistance? They stood on the cusp of a wondrous journey. What divine transformation awaited them in the days ahead? As the echoes of their voices faded, a stirring silence wrapped around the chapel, imbued with an expectant energy. Mark remained at the altar, his presence commanding yet gentle, as if a divine wind had filled the space with purpose. Sarah felt her heart race. Would the unfolding journey be as radiant as their renewed spirits promised? Or would shadows still linger? "Let us make plans, but let us do it prayerfully," Thomas interjected, the weight of the moment pressing gently on his shoulders. "We need to ask God to guide us every step of the way." A hum of agreement swept through the room. Sarah realized how important this moment was, not just for them, but for everyone yearning for a touch from the divine. "Yes, let us pray right now," she said, her voice steady. She felt invigorated by the collective power of hope around her. They formed a small circle, hands entwined, grounding themselves in connection. With their heads bowed low, they began to pray fervently, tearfully, expectantly. Sarah felt the warmth of many voices rising, intertwining like threads in a tapestry. Each plea was a heartbeat, a pulse of faith. "Lord, lead us," Sarah breathed, her voice rising above the waves of prayer. "Guide us to those who need to hear your kindness. Show us how to walk boldly into the world." And as they prayed, a cool breeze swept through the open windows, dancing among the leaves outside and sending a comforting shiver down their spines. It felt as if God himself was present, breathing life into their intentions. As the final amen lingered, an urgent voice broke the silence. "I just remembered. What about our neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins?" An excited voice piped up. "She's always alone, especially since her husband passed. She could use this light." "Yes. And what about the school? The children there need hope too," added another. Ideas began exploding like fireworks as the congregation brainstormed, energized by their purpose. Each thought sparked new enthusiasm, and soon the chapel atmosphere was cruising on the high tide of collective dreams. Mark led the conversation with a passion that ignited a brighter flame within them all. Let us not just wait for them to come to us, let us meet them where they are. We can host a community day, something for everyone. Visions of laughter and joy, of families and friends gathered together under the sun, filled Sarah's heart. She could almost hear the music, see the colorful decorations, feel the joy ripple through the air. This was what Larkspur needed: connection and love. But as each plan seemed more brilliant than the last, Sarah glanced outside, momentarily gripped by the shadows gathering at the edges of her thoughts. Doubts crept in. Could they truly achieve this? What if they faced resistance? Was there faith enough to counter the trials that lay ahead? Casting those questions aside, she straightened her shoulders. They had already faced darkness together and emerged into light. What would be the worst that could happen if they lit a single candle of hope in a world so often shrouded in shadows? Whatever walls we face, we will tear them down together, she declared, a defiant joy in her heart. Let us not lose sight of the mission God has given us. But deep within the recesses of her spirit, a whisper lingered. This was only the beginning, the moment before they ventured into waters unknown. What currents of change would they encounter? What challenges awaited them on this spectacular journey? The air buzzed with anticipation as they finished outlining their plans, wrapping themselves in the promise of a new dawn that awaited them. Together, they stood at the threshold of something miraculous, not truly knowing what awaited. Would the journey uncover sacrifices they had yet to foresee? As they left the chapel, hearts buoyed with enthusiasm and minds racing with possibilities, they couldn't shake the feeling that the real test was still to come, a trial that would deepen their courage and unveil the profound trust required. Will we be brave enough to face the storm ahead? Sarah thought, glancing at Mark, whose face radiated light. She wondered what transformation awaited them in the next days. The sun dipped low in the sky as they stepped out of the chapel, casting golden rays that painted the town with warmth. Sarah felt the coolness of evening settling in, a gentle reminder that even as day turns to night, hope shines on. The laughter from the chapel echoed in her mind, each chuckle a promise of connection waiting to bloom. Let us meet first thing tomorrow, Mark exclaimed, enthusiasm bubbling forth. I'll grab some flyers, and Sarah, could you create a poster? We need to spread the word about our community day. Yes, she replied, empowered by his call to action. Ideas flowed through her like a river, each one more vibrant than the last. We could include games, food, and maybe even a few skits, something to cheer up Mrs. Jenkins and everyone else. Their conversation danced freely as they walked through the streets, the anticipation of what was to come wrapping around them like a starry blanket. Yet, as they passed familiar houses, a shadow flickered again at Sarah's heart. What if they failed? What if their hands fell short of meeting every need? Penny for your thoughts? Thomas asked gently, noticing her distant gaze. She paused, eyes fixed on a cluster of children playing down the road. I wonder if we can really do this, you know? Mark stopped, turning to her, a steadfast calm radiating from him. Faith isn't about knowing every step ahead, Sarah. It's about trusting even when the way isn't clear. His reminder settled softly within her, like a warm candle flickering against the dark. It was a call back to the promise, a gentle prodding to hold onto the light still shining bright. Right? She murmured, feeling the burdens of doubt lift just a little. Let us remember why we are doing this. They continued discussing plans as they reached their small gathering spot at the local park. It was here, surrounded by the lush green of the grass and the blooming flowers, they would cultivate joy and togetherness. Isn't it amazing? Sarah said as they took a seat on a bench, gazing at the trees swaying in the evening breeze. All of this light started in that little chapel. Just think of how much we could do if we all focus on sharing God's kindness. Yes, Mark agreed, looking up at the sky as if he could see the hopes written in the clouds. Every act of love, no matter how small, is powerful. It's like a ripple in the water, reaching far beyond what we can see. As night settled in, they spoke of Mrs. Jenkins and the children at the school. But amidst their plans, a restless feeling began to creep into Sarah's thoughts. Would their actions resonate? Would people truly come? The next morning, as they gathered at the park, excitement brimmed alongside her hesitance. Laughter filled the air, mingled with the smell of freshly baked goods and the joyful shouts of children racing under sunbeams. Yet, just as they prepared to welcome their neighbors, a sudden storm rolled in. Dark clouds billowed overhead, and the wind began to howl ominously. Sarah's heart raced. The fears that had hovered in her mind now felt all too real. Everyone to safety. Someone called as raindrops began to fall, causing the joyous sounds to shift into panic. Time seemed to slow as she watched puddles form. The plans they had so carefully made threatened to dissolve like soap bubbles. Shadows loomed closer, and a doubt whispered in the chaos. Is this a sign? Mark grabbed her hand, and they rushed for cover. But in that moment, she felt a spark ignite within her. It wasn't about the storm or the chaos, it was about trust. Maybe this, she thought, her heart steadying against the backdrop of turmoil, isn't the end, but the beginning. What was God really preparing them for amidst the storm? Would they emerge stronger on the other side? Hope flickered like the lightning in the distance, each flash a reminder of the light that still shone within them. The rain poured heavier, drowning out murmurs of doubt. Instead, excitement surged anew in Sarah's heart. Wasn't a storm just a prelude to the most brilliant sunshine? As they huddled close, Sarah closed her eyes. They were at the edge of something huge, and she felt the weight of purpose settling back in. What revelations awaited them in the morning after the storm had passed? Would they discover a new strength, or had they yet to face their greatest trials? The night felt alive with possibility. The dawn broke with a soft, golden hue spilling over the horizon, the remnants of the storm hanging like a memory in the air. Sarah stepped outside her home, taking a deep breath. The world felt different today, fresh, renewed, full of promise. Each droplet glistening on the leaves served as a reminder that even after the fiercest storms, life could emerge brighter than ever. "Good morning, Sarah," Mark greeted as he approached. His hair still tousled, but his smile wide and infectious. "Did you sleep well?" "Surprisingly, yes," she replied, heart swelling as she saw his enthusiasm. "It's like a new day. Isn't it?" "Exactly. We should embrace it," he said, holding up a stack of flyers. "People will be drawn to the light. Let us get to work." Together, they gathered friends, transforming their initial fears into actions filled with purpose. As they plastered flyers throughout the neighborhood, they encountered smiling faces, glimmers of curiosity growing in every glance. Children peered from behind their doors, and adults stopped to chat. The ripple of excitement spread, just as they hoped it would. "Remember, every smile shared is a piece of hope awakened," Sarah said to Mark, feeling her faith strengthened with every interaction. They stopped a moment to watch the children drawing rainbows with chalk on the pavement, their joy infectious. "Kids know how to hope," Mark reflected softly, a warmth in his voice. "We could learn a lot from them." Throughout the day, they prayed quietly at every corner, asking God to bless their efforts, willing to let His light guide their steps. As they handed out snacks in their community, Sarah felt hope blossoming within her. Each thank you from an adult or giggle from a child felt like a whisper from heaven, assuring her they were on the right path. However, a lingering worry still nibbled at Sarah's heart. Could their small plans make a difference? She met Thomas Gaze when he arrived with a group of volunteers. "What if we don't see the impact we wish to see?" she whispered, her voice almost lost amidst the chatter of excitement. "Look around," he replied, gesturing at the joyous scene unfolding. "This is just the beginning. Remember what Mark said. It's about trusting God in what we can't control." His words settled like a warm embrace around her spirit. She nodded, letting that reassurance flow through her. Wasn't it true? It was never about them but rather about what God could do through them. As the morning melted into afternoon, clouds drifted back, but they stood strong, determined. The laughter and conversations swirled around them, weaving a tapestry of community that even the looming shadows couldn't dim. "Let us gather everyone together," Mark suggested, voice steady. We should bring this light to the forefront. They huddled in a circle, with everyone holding hands, and Mark led them in prayer. Lord, let our hearts shine bright. May each word spoken bring warmth. May each act of kindness ripple further than we can imagine. His voice rang out clear and firm. In that moment, an inexplicable joy filled the air, an awakening that enveloped them like a thick fog of faith. Every heart swelled with purpose, charging them with renewed determination as they shared stories of triumph over trials. The evening set in with an unexpected calm. Sarah caught sight of Mrs. Jenkins in the distance, hope lighting her weary eyes. The sight transported Sarah to that initial hesitance, the nagging questions that had once threatened to overshadow their plans. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting hues of orange and pink, the most profound knowing washed over Sarah. They were not alone. God's presence lingered in each moment. He had been preparing them for something bigger, something beyond what they could comprehend. Tomorrow would unveil even greater challenges and mysteries. What divine insights would they encounter next? Would they finally understand why their faith had been tested so fiercely? As night embraced them tenderly, Sarah couldn't help but feel they were on the brink of a beautiful revelation. As the stars twinkled above, casting a blanket of quiet on the neighborhood, Sarah could feel the anticipation building within her. Their gathering had been a beacon of light, but now she wondered what the next steps would hold. Would the sparks of hope ignite into flames of transformation? The following morning dawned with a crispness that promised clarity. Sunlight streamed through Sarah's window, urging her awake. She felt a new energy coursing through her veins. Today was not just another day. It was a day of potential and purpose. Hey, ready to dive in? Mark's voice floated through her door, filled with the same enthusiasm he had shown the day before. Absolutely, Sarah called back, feeling emboldened. Today, they would reach deeper into their community, spreading the love and light they had been cultivating. They met at the local park, a central point where families often gathered. The sound of children playing filled the air, laughter ringing like music to their ears. Sarah looked around, instinctively knowing that this was where they needed to be. They set up a small stand with the snacks they had prepared and added a bulletin board for prayer requests as people began to trickle in. Sarah noticed a couple of familiar faces. Mrs. Jenkins approached with her granddaughter, her usual weariness replaced with a hint of curiosity. "What's all this about?" she asked, her smile brighter, as if it had been waiting to emerge. "We're here to spread kindness and bring us all together," Sarah responded, her heart warmed by Mrs. Jenkins' interest. "We'd love to pray for anything you might need. It's a way to uplift each other." Mrs. Jenkins' eyes glistened with emotion. "Well, that would be a blessing. I've been struggling with my health. Thank you for being here." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of the woman's trials. This was the essence of community, lifting one another, sharing burdens, and rejoicing in the shared journey. As they prayed with Mrs. Jenkins, Sarah felt the barrier between them dissolve. Their faith intertwined, anchoring them in hope. With each amen, Sarah sensed an unshakable connection form, a thread of faith that bound them together. Throughout the day, they encountered many more like Mrs. Jenkins. Each conversation deepened her understanding of the struggles within her community. Yet each story shared was met with the promise of hope, with Mark and the volunteers offering prayers and snacks. They even danced impromptu to a nearby child's rendition of a joyful hymn, laughter bubbling up like a cleansing stream. In the quiet moments between interactions, Sarah paused, allowing her spirit to reflect. "God, is this what you meant by living in the light? Is our purpose truly found in these simple acts of love?" The thoughts raced through her mind. Late in the afternoon, as the sky turned golden, a man approached. His face was familiar to Sarah, though she couldn't place him until he introduced himself.
"I'm David.
"I remember you from the neighborhood watch meetings. You've got quite the movement happening here." His curiosity sparked something in her heart. "We just want to lift each other up through small acts of kindness," she explained, sensing that his interest could lead to something deeper. His eyes filled with understanding. "I've been on a journey of my own, trying to find a way to help others. Maybe I can join you?" Shivers ran down her spine, not from the chilly evening air, but with the realization that God was weaving their stories together, threading a tapestry that would be revealed in due time as twilight enveloped the day. Sarah felt both anticipation and a hint of anxiety. If God was bringing people together, what would come next? They went home with hearts full of faith and expectation. The questions danced in Sarah's mind: was this the beginning of larger plans? The thought brewed within her, until finally, the undeniable truth struck her like lightning. God's timing was perfect, and they were on the threshold of a divine transformation. What awaited them when morning light broke again? Would this new day bring clarity to their mission? The sun rose the next morning, casting a gentle glow over the park where Sarah and her friends had gathered. There was a buzz of excitement in the air, a sense that something significant was about to unfold. As the day brightened, Sarah felt an unshakable peace settle within her. It was as though God was whispering encouragement into her spirit, igniting a deeper faith that encouraged her to embrace the unknown. "Are you ready for today?" Mark asked, enthusiasm bubbling in his voice. "More than ever," Sarah replied, her heart dancing in response to his energy. Together, they prepared for their gathering, their spirits lifted by the promise of light. They set up more prayer stations, inviting every passerby to share a moment of connection. Soon, families stopped to chat, sharing stories behind the smiles. Sarah was grateful to see familiar faces return, the spark of hope kindling with each conversation. As the morning unfolded, Sarah felt a surge of divine inspiration. The laughter of children, the rustle of leaves, and the warmth of the sun felt like pieces of a sacred orchestra playing in harmony with their purpose. She turned to Mark, her eyes shining with excitement. "What if we also organized a community picnic next week? A chance for everyone to come together, to celebrate and share their stories?" she proposed. Mark's eyebrows lifted with delight. "I love that idea. It's a great way to strengthen our ties and spread the blessings we're experiencing here." The thought of their community gathering made Sarah's heart swell. It was a step into broader waters, a response to God's calling for them to extend their reach. Yet, amidst the excitement, she felt a weight of responsibility. Would they be able to handle the growth? As if reading her mind, a gentle breeze fluttered through, reassuring her with its comforting presence. "God, help us prepare for what is to come," she whispered. Her heart stilled as afternoon approached. An unassuming woman approached the stand. Her eyes brimmed with tears, yet she managed a shy smile. "Hi, my name is Lily," she said softly. "I overheard you praying with others. I'm not sure where to start, but I could really use someone to talk to." Sarah's heart tightened with empathy as she saw the fragility behind Lily's brave facade. "Of course, we're here for you," she replied warmly, gesturing for her to sit. Over the next hour, they shared life stories. Lily spoke of loss, grappling with pain she had tucked away. As Sarah listened, she could feel each word resonate deeply, revealing the sacred struggle of many. When the time came to pray, Sarah held Lily's hands, pouring out her heart in vivid emotion. It was a moment of sacred intimacy, a divine intervention that left both women with an indescribable comfort. After their prayer, Sarah noticed others joining them, drawn in by the palpable weight of their connection. It was as if God unveiled a tapestry of stories woven together by shared experiences of struggle and hope. As laughter returned to the forefront, the mood shifted. Children chased one another, their joy a reminder that God was already at work, transforming hearts. Yet, as Sarah took a moment to breathe, a flicker of apprehension washed over her. Was this newfound energy sustainable? Could their small acts of kindness truly catalyze the change they also desperately needed? Just then, a shout came from across the park. David appeared again, waving fervently. "I brought my wife. We want to help with the picnic. We're so excited to be part of this community." "Welcome," Sarah beamed, feeling the warmth of his family's presence as they joined the gathering. This was it. Each person who stepped forward made the work feel less daunting, as if they all were aligning under a shared heavenly vision. With hope swirling around her, Sarah thought back to the message she had sensed the night before transformation was on the horizon. What would this lead to in heart and spirit? As the sun began to sink, casting long golden shadows across the grass, Sarah sensed a shift in the atmosphere. God was preparing to do more than they could imagine. But what came next shook the very foundation of their emerging vision. A voice in the crowd called out, "Hey, we have a need here. Does anyone have a family to help?" Was this an invitation to something deeper, or a call to arms they hadn't prepared for? Only time would reveal the answer. A hush fell over the park as confusion rippled through the crowd. Sarah's heart raced. The words echoed in her mind, stirring a yearning for action, a thirst to respond to God's prompting. People began to look around, faces filled with uncertainty. Sarah grasped the moment something in her anchored her. "What do you need?" she called out, her voice steady and inviting. Cutting through the whispering winds, a young man stepped forward, his hands trembling slightly. "My sister. She has been going through a tough time. She lost her job and feels like she has no one to turn to. We need help. We need community." At that, Sarah's heart jumped. This was the challenge she believed they were called toward. In her spirit there was a surge of purpose. "We can help," she replied, now fueled by a divine fire that lit her soul. "Let us find a way to support your sister." Others began to step forward, sharing their struggles or offering support. It was a movement, a wave of compassion sweeping through the park. Each story shared woven tighter into the fabric of the community they were creating. Sarah looked to Mark, who was nodding, his eyes wide, reflecting the same excitement. Sarah took a step closer to the young man. "We can set up a group to support her, to pray, to connect her with jobs and resources. Would you be willing to help us organize this?" His eyes widened, hope flickering there. "Really? You'd do that for us?" "Of course," she exclaimed. "That's what this is all about. We're a family now, and families help each other." As the conversation flowed, the air tingled with expectancy. Surrounded by laughter, shared tears, and renewed hope, Sarah felt an otherworldly unity, as if heaven itself had brushed down to kiss the meeting with its blessing. With every name written down in her notebook, she felt God paving a road forward. The community picnic suddenly transformed into not just a gathering, but a pivotal moment for connection, healing, and empowerment. They were crafting a life buoy for those drowning in despair, lifted by each other's hands. Lily returned to Sarah's side. Her spirit brightened. "I want to help too. I've been through darkness, but I've found light, and I want to share that," she said with conviction. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, a mix of gratitude and amazement that God was working through them all. "Yes, Lily. Together we can shine even brighter." The sun hung lower now, casting a golden light that seemed to amplify Sarah's faith. She closed her eyes for just a moment, breathing in the crisp air. "God, thank you for this moment. Whatever you have planned, we are here open and ready." Just as she opened her eyes, she overheard another voice nearby, a woman speaking softly into a phone. "Yes, we can help a family in need. We can deliver food and support." Sarah's heart leaped again. It was a chorus of faith resonating all around her, calling in the lost, weaving tangible connections. She knew this was only the beginning. As the gathering began to shape into a burgeoning community, a new sense of mission rose among them. Yet, a flicker of concern tugged at Sarah's heart. Would they truly be able to meet these growing needs? Was their faith enough to carry them through this? The day was humming with energy, but beneath the surface lay an invitation to dive deeper. What if they ventured into uncharted waters? What if the very act of helping expanded their understanding of love and grace? Little did they know, challenges loomed on the horizon, waiting to test their unity and faith. What would unfold in the days ahead? What possibilities did God have in store for the budding community? The answer lay just beyond their reach. As the sun rose on a new day in Larkspur, an electrifying energy buzzed through the air, stirring hearts with both excitement and uncertainty. Sarah felt it deep within her, resonating like a drumbeat of purpose. They had witnessed miracles, but now came the true test, growing their community into a beacon of lasting hope. Today is the day, she declared softly. They would begin their outreach, a series of gatherings to reach each lost soul they knew needed love. Let us make our plans a reality. Mark smiled, brimming with affirmation. News of their gatherings spread like wildfire, igniting curiosity. Every face they saw reflected a spectrum of hope, pain, and everything in between. The voices around them told stories of struggle, but also flickers of light breaking through. Sarah listened intently, feeling the weight of each story shared, each a testament to faith in the darkest hours. As they gathered in the park later that evening, an overwhelming sense of unity enveloped them. The air hummed with conversations, laughter, and echoes of prayer. There, under the branches of a sturdy oak tree, Sarah, Mark, and the villagers formed a circle, where hearts beat as one. "Let us pray," Sarah urged, her voice steady but humble. Hands intertwined, their emotions swelled in the sacred moment. Grief, joy, and gratitude melded into a beautiful offering. "Lord, guide us as we serve others. Help us bear each other's burdens and share the light you've bestowed upon us." As she spoke those words, Sarah felt a warmth radiate through her body, an inner assurance flooding her spirit. Moments later, an unexpected visitor appeared at the edge of their gathering. Mrs. Jenkins. With tears glistening on her cheeks, she approached, clutching a basket filled with fresh bread. "I wanted to contribute," she said, her voice quivering with a mixture of vulnerability and profound love. They reached out to her gently, pulling her into their embrace. "Your presence is a gift, Mrs. Jenkins," Mark exclaimed, lifting her spirits higher. With every new person who joined their circle, Sarah felt walls of isolation crumble, replaced by the strength of community. "Each moment we share fortifies our journey," she said, as laughter mingled with summer breezes. A vibrant tapestry formed in the richness of their connections. Days turned into weeks, and their gatherings blossomed into something magnificent, a haven for healing and restoration. Each time they met, they nurtured the rhythm of faith, trust, and unconditional love. The old chapel thrummed with life. They filled it with laughter, music, and shared meals instead of solemnity and despair. Yet even amidst this blossoming light, trials loomed, challenges that threatened to test their resolve. One rainy evening, as they huddled together, a community member shared their struggle with escalating bills. "I don't know how we'll make it," she sobbed quietly, bitterness flooding her heart. The confession hung heavy in the air, and murmurs of doubt began weaving through the gathering. Sarah felt her heart race. Was it possible to face this uphill struggle? But as she gazed around the dimly lit room, hope flickered in their eyes despite the fear. "Let us gather resources," Sarah declared, confidence rising from deep within. "If we all pull together, if we share our blessings, we can lift this burden." An echo of agreement rippled through her friends, illuminating their shared determination. What began as one cry for help transformed into a flurry of ideas, culminating in a mission of solidarity. They set up a community fund, pooling money, time, and talents. The power of love melted their fears, replacing darkness with rays of divine providence. That transformative moment, when they turned despair into action, forged a bond deeper than any could have imagined. Challenges loomed, but Sarah felt an unyielding trust emerge. With each step forward, their community grew stronger in faith and love. Finally, the day of their grand community picnic arrived. Tables overflowed with food, laughter danced on the wind, and the air pulsed with joy. Families gathered, sharing stories, and in the heart of it, Sarah stood, looking out at the faces beneath the fading sunlight. "Together, we can shine brighter than any storm," she proclaimed, her voice rising above the din. "Our hope doesn't just come from miracles, but from the connections we weave and the lives we touch." With those words, a wave of gratitude surged within her, not just for what they had achieved, but for the breathtaking journey God had led them through. As their community cheered, she caught a glimpse of Mark, radiant with shared purpose and love for each member present. They had ventured through darkness, emerged on the other side, and now, they stood poised at the dawn of something greater. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, bathing them in golden light, Sarah felt the familiar warmth of divine assurance wash over her heart. From that moment on, they would continue to be the light to guide others out of despair. Each new story echoed in the rhythm of love they had embraced, spilling forth like living water to those still thirsting for hope. This was at the beginning of their lasting legacy, a faith-activated community that would ripple out into Larkspur and far beyond. And so, they would march forward together, united as living testimonies of resilience and divine promise. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive faith stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and share this journey with others. Comment your reactions and testimonies about this ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful manifestation. True servants of God understand the importance of supporting one another. Let us spread the light together.